I'm Joshua Perkins. I'm the COO of Compression Care. We specialize in handling the billing to insurance companies for patients with lymphedema, and then we branched out to wound care. And I think it's an important thing that we talk about the lipedema patients because it's easy to get insurance to cover lymphedema now, and it's easy to get it to cover wound care. It's much harder with the lymphedema. And I think with lipedema, we need to focus on helping those patients. There's a huge population of patients out there, and that's what we're here to do.
Compression is one of the most important parts of long-term lipedema management, but for many patients, access to proper compression remains one of the biggest barriers for consistent care. Patients are often left trying to figure out garments, measurements, replacements, insurance, and product options completely on their own, while also managing ongoing financial burden that comes with long-term compression therapy. This session is presented in collaboration with Compression Care, a company focused on helping patients navigate compression access, garment selection, insurance support, and long-term conservative care management. Josh, welcome. Thank you so much for being
Thank you.
here.
I appreciate you having
I'm
me.
so excited for this session because even in the few meetings that we had before you came on board for the Lipedema Summit, I learned so much about what is available
Thank
to
you.
me and access. And I think this is such an important conversation for this community to hear. And I'm so excited for
Absolutely.
you to share all these resources that we may not know about. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so let's start with some of the biggest gaps and issues that women with lipedema face. I mean, obviously, lipedema is an ongoing condition. We need to wear compression, but being able to access it and have long-term access can be a struggle, and a lot of women don't know what resources are available to them. So can we start with a little bit about, sharing a little bit about what compression care does for that and how do you support that community?
For sure. There are different types of garments. There's circular knit, there's flat knit, and there's some that are actually made specifically for lipedema
Mhm.
patients. And I think that I think that if we look at the patients in general, and I think almost all of the patients that are listening in today, what they're going to know is that they probably have a bag somewhere of all these random products that they have tried. They have stuck these things and they put them on, they tried them, they're not working, they don't feel good, whatever that
Mhm.
is, right? What we can do is specialize more in the major manufacturers, the ones that are really medical grade,
Mhm.
because you can go on, Amazon or wherever, and you can buy products and you can
Mhm.
type in a keyword and it'll give you a ton of stuff. And but they're not medical grade. And I think that's where we really need to focus is how do we get these patients into a garment that is medical grade?
Mhm.
And then the second part of that is how do we get them to where, maybe we can get them covered by insurance.
And on average, how much does a lipedema patient spend on compression per year?
If you are getting really fancy garments, like the flat knit, the gold standard of care. And if you're in a thigh high garment and you're one to wear, one to wash, one to keep in a drawer, that's kind of a minimum. It's $3,000 to $6,000 a year just in garments. When you look at a patient without lipedema or lymphedema, right? A patient that's just going down to the store to buy socks. At that point, they're spending $30 a year. But a patient with a condition like lipedema or lymphedema, they're having to spend thousands. And we have to try to minimize that. But at the same time, you don't want to try to spend the $30 because then you end up with that bag full of products that don't work.
Products you don't like, that
Yeah.
are
And
uncomfortable and not really supporting you either, right?
that's exactly right. And there are name brands that you would use in like the sports industry that everybody would recognize. And I've bought them for myself,
Mhm.
as a well, when I did run, uh, I was trying to increase my pace, and I would get shin splints. I would get
Mhm.
these things, and I went down and I just bought some socks at a running store, and they say they're compression, but they didn't do anything, and it didn't do what I needed it to do until I went to one of the major manufacturers and got real compression, and there is a massive difference in that.
And so let's talk a little bit about how often women should also be replacing their garments. This is something I learned from you. I mean, I'm definitely
Yeah,
guilty of using my compression a lot longer than I probably need to because it is expensive. And,
yeah.
I haven't known about these resources that can help support me on that. But how often should women be replacing their garments?
The manufacturers actually have this suggestion. It's every 6 months, and it's because as we wash, as we wear the spandex, if you will, what makes them compression starts breaking down, thread snap, whatever. So every 6 months is really the standard in the industry across the board. And if you're not doing it every 6 months, you're losing compression, and that's just exacerbating the condition.
And so let's talk a little bit about the differences in different garments. So you mentioned, flat knit versus circular knit, but then there's also daytime garments and nighttime
Yeah.
garments and wraps and pumps. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the different options that
Yeah,
women
it
have?
it really breaks down. If you can simplify it by saying there's elastic garments and there's inelastic
Mm,
garments, right? And those are the two main categories. So a wrap would be an inelastic garment. Inelastic can be daytime. It can also be used as a nighttime garment.
mhm,
The elastic garments, that is your circular knit stocking, your flat knit stocking, and it really just depends on the thickness of that, whether it's going to be circular knit
mhm,
or flat knit. And it's not just about being thick; it's about having a wall strength to hold and put the compression you need.
mhm,
So you can have a garment that's elastic, and that's going to be a daytime garment. You can have an inelastic garment, a wrap, and that's going to be a daytime garment, but you can wear it as a nighttime garment.
mhm,
But then they decided to make nighttime garments that are padded, and it makes it much more comfortable for the patients. That's typically the real nighttime garment now, are
mhm.
these padded garments. And people think a lot of times about the padded garments that oh man, they can be hot, they can be this. They're making them with materials that are cooling to the skin. They're
Mhm.
making them where they're moisture wicking. And even though they've got that padding, it's it's not hard to wear at night. They make them smooth so they don't stick to the sheets. Like Velcro wraps will stick to your sheets and they poke you in the night. But these garments, they're
They've
good.
come a long way.
They've come a long way. So
Mhm,
even though, so I would use an elastic wrap during the day. I mean, an elastic wrap for daytime product.
mhm,
You can use it at night, but it's much better if you can to get the nighttime, the true padded nighttime garment.
mhm.
And then during the day, these flat knit stockings, man, they make them with patterns. They make them where you can get, you know, crystals stuck to them. I don't know. It's like I don't know how they make them stay on there,
Fashionable.
but
They're becoming
they
fashionable,
can make
right?
them fashionable, and you
Yeah.
can get different colors and different styles and all kinds of
Yeah,
things.
and you
So
can wear some as just like leggings or,
that's
if you're gonna wear
exactly
tights
right.
with a dress,
That's
you can just
exactly
wear the
right.
compression instead, and they're actually pretty comfortable. And sometimes I feel like women feel better with compression on than without because it just kind of helps support your body. It helps with that
Yes.
heaviness and that swelling, and you're definitely like helping to manage your condition, but you're
Yeah.
also feeling better because of it too.
Yeah, you can move around easier wearing the compression. It does feel
Kind of
good.
holds you together a little bit.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
sometimes I kind of like just wearing mine. I'm like, it just kind of
Yeah.
feels good and resets my body, I feel like.
And I think, that first time you put on compression, sometimes you'd be like, man,
It's a little
this is
intense.
so tight. But after you wear it a few times, you start to go, and I feel better when
Mhm.
I wear this. This
Definitely.
is good for me.
Mhm.
So, and it does feel good. And I do wear compression too. I still try when I can jog. I do wear
Use it to
compression when I
support.
jog.
And so let's talk about fits and some of the resources that you have. I think a lot of women, don't know what size to get. And you,
Yeah.
you get a compression in the mail and it comes and it's tiny and you're like, how am I gonna
How
fit
am I
into
going to
this?
get
And
into
is this even
this?
the
Yeah,
right size?
that's
And then,
exactly right.
women with lipedema are staging their surgeries and navigating different sizes. You might have bigger thighs and smaller shins at one point. So how do you go about making sure that you're in the right size
Yeah.
that's gonna be supporting your condition?
Yeah, that sizing in the compression industry is really one of the most important things you can do
Mhm.
because, just like we're talking about, you can go out to a store or you can go online and you can buy something, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, I buy shirts online and they don't fit right. That's my size and it's
Yeah.
not fitting me. And so to say that I can order a medium or you can order a small and we'll get the right size, it's not really that possible, right?
Mhm.
And so with the true medical grade compression, they're measuring points on the leg for a ready to wear. And so you're getting a length measurement so you know where it's going to land. You're getting the width of the calf, you're getting the width of the ankle so that you're in a range, right?
Mhm.
So that's a lot more accurate to do it that way. But then if you step that up to the gold standard, the reason flat knit is the gold standard is because they're measuring at multiple points all the way up the leg.
Mhm.
And not only are they measuring the circumference, but they're also measuring the length.
Mhm.
So at 28 centimeters, I am this, circumference. And
Mhm.
so, and since it goes all the way up the leg like that, and even all the way up to the chest, you're getting a much better and more accurate fit all the way up when you do that.
Mhm.
And it's going to do a lot of things. One, it's going to fit, but that's going to up your compliance and it's going to solve that for that condition better.
And so, what are some resources that women can use to get measured? I mean, I think a lot of women have CLTs that are really supportive, or OTs that might be supporting their ongoing management. Is this something that you can measure yourself and get pretty accurately, or do you need the support of one of
It-
these people that might be more professional in the world of compression and
yeah,
supporting
that's a tough
lipedema?
one, right? Like my mom has been, she is a seamstress
Hmm.
and she has made drapes her whole life. And my grandmother, her mom, did the same,
Hmm.
right? Would I trust her to do it? Yeah, I bet I could do that,
Hmm.
right? But a patient measuring themselves, it's going to be difficult.
Hmm.
One, so you have to have somebody there that can help you. But the truth is, it's best to go to a professional that can do that,
Hmm.
right? And that's going to be your CLTs, the PTs, the OTs that are out there on the front lines doing this every day.
Hmm.
They're the professionals that really know the measurements. They know the different products. They're educated on it.
Hmm.
And so, especially when you go through the CLT courses, you learn how to do these things. And it is a course. It's an intense course. So just to say, hey, can a patient do it? Yeah, they can. And you could probably do a pretty good job of it,
Hmm.
you know. But I mean, I was in financial planning before I got into this industry,
Hmm.
and they kind of threw me to it, right? I learned it and
Hmm.
I'm able to do it. I'm pretty darn good at it. But I think just taking somebody and saying, "Hey, throw your husband on the floor, let him run up your leg with these different points." It
Hmm.
is more difficult. You would need somebody to guide you. Compression care can do what we call virtual pit fitting.
Hmm.
And so we will get on a virtual, like a Teams meeting, a FaceTime call, whatever we have to do.
Hmm.
And we can kind of guide that. We'll do that for the therapist, we'll do that for the patients. But it is better to be in a professional
Hmm.
setting. If you've got a local HME, I know we're a biller on a national scale, right?
Hmm.
If you've got somebody local though that can do that, then maybe that's the best place because it is
Hmm.
about patient care. And if
Hmm.
they've got somebody really good that can handle that billing and can do the measurements, that's the place they need to go.
Hmm. And then, so should you be getting new measurements every 6 months? Because with lipedema, our body sizes are constantly fluctuating, whether it's surgery or GLP-1s or just naturally the course of the condition. Is that something that you need to be kind of checking every 6 months when you order new ones, or can you kind of stick to your
I
measurements and know
think it
they're
depends
gonna
on the
stick?
patient and what's going on in their life,
Hmm.
right? If they've been consistent and everything's going well,
Hmm.
right? Then it's fine to just do a remake, reorder the exact same garment that you've already been in.
Hmm.
But if something's changed, you had to go into the hospital, you went on vacation and didn't wear them for 2 weeks.
That's gonna
You
change
sat at the
everything.
beach and didn't want to put them on. It's not a good idea. I wouldn't recommend it. But at the same
I
time,
learned my lesson. I
things, yeah,
always take mine when I travel now
always take
because
them because, yeah, it does make a difference, right? And so if you're getting close to that point and you skip wearing your garment for a couple weeks, yeah, you might need to get remeasured.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
if it's just something you do it every day and you are on a systematic, this is the way I live my life,
You
right?
should be
Because it
pretty
is a
consistent,
lifestyle.
definitely.
And so
It's
as
like
long
brushing
as
your teeth. Wearing
that's
your
exactly
compression's
right.
gotta be a
Yeah.
habit, right?
You brush your teeth, you put on deodorant,
I mean,
whatever
I
it
hope you
is, you
brush your teeth.
put your garment on. Yeah, hopefully. So, but you put on your garments and that's the way it is, right? And at night you wear your night garments and you mentioned earlier too, and I didn't really get to talk about it a little bit, but the pneumatic pump. You might be doing a pneumatic pump, and they're great. They augment the compression and the MLD therapy that a PT or an OT can do,
Yeah, you
right?
read my mind. That was actually
So,
gonna be my next
oh,
question, talking about some of
so
the additional
yeah,
no, it's great.
yeah.
I love we're in sync.
But you're going through those, you're going through your daily
Yep.
process. And if you're doing all of that, you're going to maintain and you
Mhm,
could just do a reorder on those garments and you can just get as you need
mhm,
them, you just get some more. And that's when it gets fun too, because that's when you can go, well, I have this beige one and I have this black one, but I don't have this purple one with
mhm.
pink spots. Now you can start
Yeah,
you can
getting a little
start
more
branching out, or I
creative.
just bought this new dress, or I just bought this new outfit, whatever it is, and I want something that matches it. Now you
Mhm,
can go out and find that.
mhm,
And if you switch manufacturers, some of the measurement points are different, and you might want to, but you'll get to a point where kind of where you're at.
mhm.
You know,
Yeah, especially as you wear them too, you'll see which ones are more comfortable, and you can kind of stick to. I mean, I have like two or three that I'm like, okay, these are my go-tos. These feel comfortable. They fit well. I'm just gonna stick to this. And I have my bag that I'm like of the rejects that were not
all
comfortable,
the
and
the bag of
the
products that
bag of
everybody has.
rejects. I will not name names.
All the manufacturers, even though they do have like all of the major manufacturers, make wonderful
Yep,
products, right?
definitely.
They really do.
Yeah, and everyone's different, right? Everyone's gonna have different, shapes and sizes and comfort levels and, level of thickness that they want. And,
That's
it's
exactly
all
right.
very personal.
Yeah, and I think that's why, you look at these companies, they've been around forever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they've been around forever because somebody likes this one, somebody likes this one,
Exactly.
somebody likes this one, and they like
Something
them
for
for the
everyone.
reasons that they like them for. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's just, it's like anything else, I like certain kinds of jeans,
Exactly.
same thing.
And so we touched on this a moment ago, but I want to talk a little bit about, in addition to compression, there's a lot of other things that women can be using to support lipedema and, compression management. So you mentioned pneumatic pumps is definitely one. We've got wraps, different kinds of compression systems. So what are some of the other resources that you offer that can also be helpful for this in addition to compression?
In addition to compression, the what you want to try to get to is the highs and lows across the body. And I know that's just terminology at that point,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not just about, hey, I got a compression sock, but you can get different leggings, you can get different things like that that'll help you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there's a lot of companies out there, and one of the things that I think is, well, here, have your compression garments, bye, but there is a health side to this in general,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are certain teas, there are certain things you can drink, there are certain lotions. You got to keep your skin in a
Mm-hmm.
good condition, and I think those are little products along the way. The compression is the main thing, right? You want to put that compression on there, you want to keep that pressure going,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, there's a lot of things that just make you feel better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think researching that and going into those things, kind of learning what you like and what you don't like, you can expand that world
Mm-hmm.
to where now it's a routine of care. Just like, I'd love to say that I have a routine for my face at night, but other than just going to bed,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, it's part of your
But
self-care
it's part of
routine
the
and your
self-care routine,
exactly.
and there are little products along the way, and there's so many of them. And I think the best thing to do on that is really just do some research, have some playtime. If I ordered a coffee, this one of these mushroom coffee brands, right? It was awful to me, right? To me.
Uh-huh.
But I'm sure there's millions of people that love it, right? So I was like, nope, not doing this. No matter how wonderful I feel, I'm not doing this. But I think that some of those little things like that, having that self-care routine is very important. You do your pump, you do your garment, but it's the little things that will make you feel like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
it's all good.
And consistency too, right? I mean, this
Yes.
isn't something that you can be like, oh, I'm just gonna wear my compression once a week and hope for the best. Like this is
Right.
something
No.
that you need to be consistent and, take on vacation with
Yes.
you. And it's definitely gonna help you in the long run and help with the
Yeah,
condition.
absolutely. But if you go on vacation, you order open toe,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can wear your sandals.
Mm-hmm.
There's little things you can change, you can do, but I think, it's just about finding what works
Mm-hmm.
best for
Definitely.
the individual.
And so I want to get onto an exciting part of our session here today. So I want to talk a little bit about the Lymphedema Treatment Act that passed in January 2024. This has opened a lot of doors for women to have access to compression. So if you're a woman that has lipedema in addition to lymphedema, this is something that is super important for you and can kind of change your pathway to coverage for compression. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about what that legislation meant and how that's changed things.
Yeah, it was a long time coming. The LTA, or Lymphedema Treatment Act, long time coming, right? It had to pass this, it had to go through this, and it really did take, I think it was 15 or 16 years. It was a long time that they had to push this, and but when it did, it really did change the market and open up the market, because now what that meant is that Medicare says, yeah, I recognize this as a disease state, right? And so now that they've recognized it, they're covering it. Well, all these other commercial insurances that some would, some wouldn't, whatever, right? They follow the Medicare standards. So now they're covering it better too than they were. Some of them were already, right? But now they're all really kind of pushing towards it. There are still some out there that don't. There are still some out there that do not cover. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but there's one that will not cover compression, and it is a major national carrier, right? But when we look at,
How is that legal if this act passed and is requiring it? How is that
yeah,
still legal for them to
you.
still continue denying that?
They've actually said that the codes are experimental.
Wow.
So because they're experimental, they won't cover it, right? And when I say that, they're saying, okay, these codes are experimental. We're not going to cover it. But then they have a random policy in one random state that has it carved out, and they'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
So even that one, sometimes they still will.
Mm-hmm.
So it did open up a lot. And we look at, if you take our business before the LTA passed, it was all commercial billing, right? There were no Medicare. Now, if you look at it, about 45% of our business is Medicare, and the other 55 is still those, the commercial insurances. So the commercial insurance got bigger, but Medicare, it was half the population with this condition could have been getting these garments paid for and weren't. And so it's been a really amazing thing for the industry. Now, when you step into like, okay, well, I've got lipedema. Does that cover? No. It's the Lymphedema Treatment Act, right? And so that's where we need that advocacy to start pushing that side of it as well. But there is a population, right, that has lipedema, but also has lymphedema. And it's those patients that can actually access, the Lymphedema Treatment Act. And I think that comes down to the education on the patient side, right? You have to be your self-advocate, right? And then it also goes over to the education to the physicians, the CLTs, everybody in the industry needs to be knowledgeable on the LTA, because if you see a patient and you go, yeah, you got classic lipedema, but do they also have lymphedema? Because if they do, then you've opened up a world of garments to them, and you've saved their pocketbook to where they can get these garments, and now better standard of care across the board, right? And we can all advocate for and hope that we can get the Lipedema Treatment Act. But in the meantime, for those patients that do have both, we can get access to care.
At least baby steps, right? We've
Baby
got half
steps.
half the
Let's
population is going to have
get
some
some of
access.
it.
Now let's advocate for the rest of us.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And it is going to take that ground, floor, grassroots movement, if you will. So we have to
Hopefully
get
with
there.
this, we can start making some motion in that, right?
For sure.
And so let's talk a little bit about exactly what that shifted in coverage. So does this allow patients to get coverage every 6 months for new garments, or what does that kind of coverage kind of look like, and what do they have access to?
It was actually the USMCA. So it was the big five of the companies that were out there that really helped drive the decisions that Medicare made. And because, as I mentioned earlier, it's every 6 months that fabric starts to break down.
Yeah.
And you need to replace it, right? And so because of that, Medicare set that standard that you can get 3 daytime per affected limb every 6 months. Now you can get 2 nighttime garments every 2 years. And this is where
do the nighttime garments last longer?
They do last longer.
Okay,
They do
all right,
typically
all right.
last longer. Plus, well, with a compression sock, you're out in your shoes, you're running around, maybe you're at the ballpark watching the kids play, you're doing things, right? In the nighttime garment, you're getting ready for bed, you're putting it on, you're laying down. It's a little safer on that garment, right? They do last longer. The issue that I see is that because they say, okay, well, you can get 2 every 2 years. Well, from a billing perspective, it'd be great if I could build 2 garments today, wouldn't it? But I don't think that's the right way to do it for a patient. And especially like you mentioned earlier, body shapes change. Well, sometimes we're trending upward, sometimes we're trending downward in the circumference, and so what we prefer to do. Now we will defer to what the physical therapist, what the patient wants, but what we prefer to do is do 1 nighttime garment the first year, and then that second year, let's make sure that it's still working, right? And then we can get another one. And what that allows us to do is just kind of move through that process a little bit. But if you want them, you can get 2. So, but yeah, you get 3 daytime every 6 months per affected limb. So if you're bilateral, you can get a lot, and it's covered, And when I say covered too, Medicare, every other insurance, they're basing that off of like an 80-20. You're always going to have a piece of it, right? It's not, oh, you got coverage now. You're 100%. It's free. It's not free. It's not free anyway. We put in
Someone's paying
time
for it
and
at some of
work and everything to get these, right?
Yes.
And so, but the garments themselves, like, you're going to have a cost associated. And I think it's important to know, like, when the Lymphedema Treatment Act first passed, patients were coming out of the woodwork and they're going, I want my free garments. Well, they're not free. If you've got an 80-20 plan, insurance is going to pay 80%, you're paying 20%. So there's always going to be a little cost associated. If you've got a high deductible plan, there's deductible that can be associated with it as well.
And so let's talk a little bit more about that. So if someone out there is listening and they have lipedema and lymphedema and they want to take advantage of this,
Yes.
act, how do they go about how do they start the process? Is that something that you help guide them on, or how does this process begin so they can access these
Yeah,
garments?
we can certainly help and guide them through, and we
Mhm,
do it all the time,
mhm,
right? We have a couple different ways that we look at patients when they come to us, right? We have either direct to patient, right,
mhm,
or we have it come through a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, whatever, right?
mhm,
And sometimes they just come straight from the physician. The physician will just say, "Hey, here's this patient that I
mhm,
want you to help," and but the patient can advocate for themselves, right?
mhm,
So the patient can come directly to us and say, here's who I am. We've actually got on our website, we've got a place they can actually fill out everything, upload their insurance cards, and we'll just respond back and say, here's what your insurance will do, and it gives them a guiding point. And even if they're like, oh, my insurance will cover it. Well, now I need to go get measured. They don't have to start with going to get a PT and going to,
mhm,
if they're just at home and they're like, man, maybe they can go online and actually fill that out and we can at least give them an idea and then they know what they're walking into. And it's the same if they come from like a referral source, like a PT, a CLT, right? So that CLT is going to send us the information we need. We can respond back. If they do that early in the process, then that patient will know early in the process, hey, I do have a 25% coinsurance. Typically it's 20, but I've seen it be 50% coinsurance. So the insurance is going to pay half and they're going to pay half. It's not Medicare when that happens, but it happens, right? And if a patient is going in and they're going through the MLD treatment, they're going through this with the PT, the OT, then if we know and can tell them early, then the PT and OT can actually guide that patient towards the garments that are best suited for what their insurance will do as well. And so if you've got, hey, you're 100% covered and everything's good, then man, I'm going to get my nighttime garments. I'm going to get my flat neck garments. I'm going to do what is the gold standard of care. If you don't have that great of coverage and you're like, well, I've got some and that's good, but I only have this amount of money. I'm fixed income. I only have this. Then we can kind of guide that so it's not taking your whole monthly, income away just to buy garments because they can be really expensive. Instead, you start it early and then, your patients are in there with the CLD and they go, okay, let's check my insurance early. We're still walking through the process. This is what we've got. Yeah, it's a big expense, but is Mother's Day coming up? Is my birthday coming up? Maybe what I want for this instead of some earrings from the kids, maybe I want some extra cash so I can get this extra garment,
mhm,
right? I want this nighttime garment. They're kind of expensive and I just want help.
mhm,
And that's probably the best gift somebody could give them,
mhm.
right? But that's not the gift that's going to be on the table, right?
Right.
It's going to be
No
something
one's
that they
thinking
went,
about giving
they're
someone compression, right?
right. No
But
one thinks about,
maybe we
maybe
should
we should,
change that.
maybe we need compression gift cards, that's what we
Yes.
need. But I mean, I think that's important. And it's something that I think some people might feel embarrassed about, I've got this condition, right?
Mhm,
You see it all the time on advertisements where I've got this skin condition. I wanted to cover it up. Well, I mean, we all have something going on,
mhm.
right? I mean, we all have something going on.
Everyone.
And so maybe it is an embarrassing thing. They don't want to talk about it, but I think
Mhm,
that's where, we can say, hey, I realize that you want to buy me whatever for this Christmas, but what I really need in my life is some compression so my leg feels better.
mhm.
That's what that needs to drive towards. And it's just having those conversations with families and friends and that'll do that. So I think if we can start the process early, the patient knows, they're more informed. Again, it's you keep that patient informed. They just like this, right? The Lipedema Summit here. We're going to give them so much information, not just me, but everybody involved. And thank you for doing that because it's what they need, right? And the more informed they can be,
Better
the
decisions you can
better
make.
decisions they can make.
Better you can feel
That's
too.
right.
And so with the insurance coverage, do you have access to any kind of compression you want? You get to choose your garment, or are there guidelines that they're like, okay, well, we'll cover this brand or this garment, and you have to select from these?
There can be some of that. And it's really not about the brand necessarily. It's really about the price of the garment because Medicare sets allowable, right? And so in some cases, a one random brand, they don't make very many. It's usually the smaller ones. The big ones, you can get anything you want. Everything is billable. I haven't run into a situation where I'm like, oh my word, I don't want to do that one from one of the major manufacturers. But I have run into it from some smaller manufacturers that maybe they're based overseas, which a lot of them are, and a lot of the bigger ones are too. But as they're based overseas, but they don't really have a good import here, or they don't have somebody here in the States. They don't have somebody that actually is the distributor. And then you have to buy so many of them just to get them to ship them, right? And that drives the cost way up. And even if it's a smaller distributorship here, then yeah, it can change the cost, right? And it can go above what Medicare will pay for. And that's what makes it difficult. But for the vast majority, I don't think you're going to run into that very often. You're going to be able to get the garments you need, and it doesn't matter. Pick your brand, pick what you like. Whatever you like is, and again, I say that whatever you like, but whatever you like that is a true medical grade compression garment that will do what it's supposed to do, right?
And so let's talk a little bit about if you are not able to get insurance coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some other resources? I believe you have Compression Guru that allows
Yes.
patients to access compression at
sure.
the lowest price. I'd love for you to share a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, we do, and it's a really neat mindset because we started compression care with the idea that no matter where you live, we can help you. There's going to be desert areas out there in the world, right? And we're like, oh, well, if you're in this small town, and you don't have anybody around you that can help you, we're going to be the ones that help you. And almost instantly, within the first 5 months, the desert areas were major metropolitan areas. Even if you look at our hometown, Nashville, there's not very many. There's really not. And so there's desert areas all over the country. And so we said, okay, well, now that we're doing that, how can we really help patients? Well, we can help them by making sure that they never have to pay more than they have to, right? And part of that is insurance coverage. So now we've got this insurance piece, and we go, now you only have to pay your deductible, right? And then somebody comes to us and we say, oh, we can't cover your insurance. Now what do we do, right? Well, we have to send them out to, we have to send them on their way, right? We have to go, oh, sorry, go find somebody else. And that's typically what happens. Like, we can't cover your garment, buy it from us, or buy, So we didn't want to do that. And so we started a network, a care coordination network with what would ostensibly be our competitors. Right. And so if the patient comes to us and we say, we can't bill it, but you know what? We know one of our competitors can. We'll do that. Right. But there are a lot of patients out there, and there's still that major insurance carrier out there that just does not cover for just grr, right? And so because of that, what we did is we were able to start Compression Guru. We purchased Compression Guru in June of last year. And we merged that piece into our business. That's www.compressionguru.com, right? And that business has been out forever, and we were able to really rescue it and keep it as part of our business model. So now what happens, though, is a patient comes to us and we can't do it, and neither can our competitors. And at that point, what's that patient going to do?
Yeah, well, still need garments.
You still need garments. What Compression Guru does is they sell at what's called MAP pricing, minimum advertised price. And because of that, we can push the patient over here and say, hey, we've got a team of people knows exactly what you need. They can get this for you at the least amount of money out of pocket that possibly can be sold for, right? And I think that just that across the board, we're here to help the patient, and it's going to make their lives easier.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this. This has been such an incredible resource. Even for me, I learned so much, and I'm excited to see if, what's out there for me, and maybe get some coverage on some of my garments as well, because this is just such an expensive condition, so hard to manage. It's a lifelong condition, and having resources like Compression Care and Compression Guru are going to be so incredibly important for this community. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. I appreciate you putting this whole event on and doing this, because it needs to be talked about. So
Definitely.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And you can learn more about Compression Care in our virtual exhibit hall. We're going to go ahead and link to their virtual booth here. They have tons of resources for you to check out, and hopefully you can get access to your compression as well.